From Eyewitness News, this is Newsmakers.
Rhode Island schools have the 7th highest per pupil spending in the nation, but rank 29th in overall K-12 education. This week, Governor Gina Raimondo signed an executive order to re-examine the state school funding formula that could have a big impact on the future of state charter schools. Plus, signs from the Speaker's office that he may support a modified plan to toll truckers. Our guest this week on Newsmakers, Rhode Island Governor Gina Raimondo.
Welcome to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. Joining me on the panel, as always, WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi. Governor, welcome back to the program. It's really good to have you.
Thank you. I couldn't miss being here this week with all the big news.
And what big news would that be?
Ted getting married and you being the first man.
Well, Ted hasn't quite got married yet. He's engaged.
Thank you very much.
You
realize
congratulations.
Thank you.
And I take credit, because you met at a pension event.
It is true.
Is
My fiance and I, a fellow reporter, we met at a pension thing. At your, exactly. You can tell how bored I was because I was talking to the girls around me at your pension event. So.
Do you want to hear the worst thing about that?
Yeah.
They actually have to plan their wedding date around the 2016 campaign. They are not getting married in 2000. Isn't that bad?
That's bad.
She knows I won't focus.
That's bad.
All right.
Is it true? You're the best
Am I the best man? Absolutely. Although I've learned it's only a one-year appointment.
So he has to renew to make sure he's doing a good job.
That's right. Yeah, that's
good.
good.
It's a 4-year term at least.
I agree.
Exactly.
Thank you very much.
Term limits, though.
Anyway, congratulations.
Thank you very much, Governor.
All right, let's get away from nuptials into policy.
Okay.
And we'll start with education. And you signed an executive order this week that launches the first formal review of the state's education funding formula. Look, before we get into the mechanics of that order, do you see this as leading to more money on the table or just moving current funds around?
Great question. I don't know is the honest answer. So we've had the funding formula. The way Rhode Island funds K-12 public schools, as you know, the state kicks in almost $1 billion a year to the cities and towns. And about 5 years ago, the state came up with a new, what they call funding formula to fund that. And so my thought here is it's been around for 5 years. We have 5 years of actual experience. So it's a good time to say what's working and what's not working. Almost certainly, next year the state will put more money into public schools than it did this past year because we're on that path to increase. So I would say probably that's going to happen.
Okay.
But the real question for me is, are we getting the biggest bang for our buck? Are we spending it the best way possible to make sure we're giving the kids and teachers everything they deserve? So that's what this is all about.
Charter schools get the same amount of per pupil spending from the funding formula as the traditional public schools do, but often they don't have the same, fixed costs as traditional public schools. Do you think charter schools are getting too much money as it stands now, and is that a big part of why you signed this executive order? It's
one of the things we're going to look at. So Rhode Island now has a system where the money follows the child.
Right.
So if you were to leave a public school and go to a public charter, that money would go with you.
Could you see that changing?
I think we have to look at it. So Massachusetts does it a little bit differently. Not all of the money goes to the charter. So that's one thing. So what I would say is, you don't want to starve charter schools. Many of them are doing an excellent job. You want to encourage that innovation, but you also have to make sure that the kids who are in every school get adequate funding. So we're going to look at charters. We're going to look at kids with learning needs and special needs. It's time to reevaluate how we do that. Non-English language learners. Right now in this funding formula, there's no provision for school districts that have a high percentage of kids for whom English isn't their first language. So I also want to look at ways to incentivize different kinds of behavior. Is it time to incentivize performance? Is it time to incentivize use of technology? Is it time to incentivize cost reduction? Like cities and towns, many of them now, they've level funded education.
So wait, just incentivize performance, that's interesting. So would that mean a school that does better gets more money?
Maybe. Does better gets more money, does different things, gets more money.
Could you see how that might backfire though? I mean, schools that are underperforming would say, we need more. That's why we're underperforming.
And that could be something we look at too. So here's what, I don't know what the answer is, right? Here's what I know. I know the state spends hundreds of millions of dollars a year on education. I know Rhode Island is one of the top spenders, 7th in the country in what we spend taxpayer money per pupil. But our results are middle of the pack. Middle of the pack results, 29th or 30th on test scores and on performance, top 10 in spending.
Not getting the bang for the buck.
Not getting the bang for the buck. So I've put together a great task force of a couple dozen people, principals, teachers, experts, Dr. Wong from Brown, who came up with the first funding formula, and saying to them, let's look at the actual data. You know, we actually have 5 years of data now. What's working, what's not. I should say, Rhode Island has a good funding formula. I don't think we need to
You don't think it's broken?
No, it's not broken. We don't have to blow it up. We're not starting from scratch. It's a good base formula. But, you know, taxpayers deserve to know, students deserve to know, teachers deserve to know, are we getting the bang for the buck? Is the very best, are we being the most innovative that we can be? Last thing I'll say is, you know, I know this is a mother, I know this is a governor, like, the magic happens in the classroom. Magic happens in the classroom. What does that mean? It happens between a teacher and a student, or a principal and a student. So I also want to look at how much of the money is getting to the classroom, supporting learning and teachers and students, versus back office, bureaucracy, school districts. So I don't know the answer, but I know I want to look at it.
I want to ask you about Roadworks, your proposal for tolling trucks to fund bridge repairs. A lot of discussion about it. As Tim said at the top of the show, Speaker Mattiello, it does sound like he sounds like he's warming up a bit to it. He's starting to say he could support a version of it. It's clear he wants to have at least some changes. I know there's been months of discussions going on. Do you have a sense at this point of what could be revised further in Roadworks? You revised it once already, but to get the Speaker fully on board and get something through the General Assembly?
I don't. He hasn't articulated specific changes that he might want. So here's what I would say. Of course, I'm always open to compromise. We have to do something. We can't wait anymore. We have procrastinated for years, and we have the worst bridges in America. So my criteria, if you will, is it's got to be big enough to get the job done. We need hundreds of millions of dollars to fix these bridges. We got to do it quickly. It has to be sustainable. You know, the gas tax is going in the wrong direction. And it has to be fair. One of the things I like about the tolling, as we've proposed it, the majority of the burden falls on out-of-state truckers. So right now, every time an 18-wheeler from another state comes through Rhode Island, they're getting a free ride. They use our roads, they abuse our roads, and they pay nothing. We're one of the only states between Maryland and Maine that doesn't put some kind of a toll on big trucks.
One of the reasons that this is controversial is it's not just the toll, it's the revenue bond. You want to float and the numbers have changed, $600-ish million, I think, at this point, a big bond, and then that leads to another, $400 or $500 million in interest costs. Have you considered dropping the bond and just using the toll revenue as it comes in so that you don't have to pay all that interest cost? Because that's been a big part of what the critics have been seizing on, the interest payments you're talking about. We
have, and it's an excellent point. Here's the unfortunate but kind of brutal reality. Because we've let our bridges get so bad, we haven't maintained them, it's incredibly expensive to fix bridges that are really decayed. So we've actually done the math on this, and it turns out it's more expensive to do the pay-as-you-go because you can't fix as many bridges quickly enough. So if you just...
That would outweigh the interest on the bond?
Yeah, exactly.
From $600 million to, what is it, $1.1 billion after?
I don't want to misstate.
But you get what I'm saying. It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. There's no doubt it's a lot of money. There are a lot of interest costs. We've looked hard at the pay-as-you-go. Still looking at the pay-as-you-go. For me, it's just what's the most capital efficient way to get this done? But the problem, the simple way to put it, I guess, is we need a big capital infusion quickly to start fixing these very broken down bridges. Because if what's happening now, just so I can say this, what's happening now is we go from emergency to emergency. This bridge is about to fall apart, put some Band-Aids. Fall apart, put some Band-Aids. That's expensive and wasting a lot of money. So I think we just have to bite the bullet, get a big capital infusion, and fix these bridges. And at least the math we're doing says it's cheaper even when you include the interest cost.
Then why not put the bond to a vote then? After 38 studios in particular, people don't like large bonds being floated by state leaders without a vote. I know you can legally do it. I'm not arguing you can't do it legally, but just in principle.
Well, the taxpayer's not on the hook for this bond. That is a huge and important difference.
Unless the revenue doesn't come in as you want.
Not true. That is not true.
Then where do you get the money?
If that were to happen, you'd have to increase the toll. Taxpayers will never be on the hook for this bond. That's not the way revenue bonds work. The taxpayers are not on the hook for this. I don't think that'll just so again, just for process, the way this works is, all I'm asking for now, what we're
only $1 billion.
No, it's a big proposal. What we're asking for now is legislation to enable us to do tolling for trucks on bridges. Then next year, all next year, will be about a public process to figure out how many tolls, where will the tolls be. The Federal Highway Commission has to do this big study to figure out, to make sure the math works. We set the right toll and it comes in, and then we do the tolling. Taxpayers won't be on the hook. The only revenue used to repay that bond comes from the tolling.
38 studios. It was at our debate that you pledged to call for an independent investigation into 38 studios. Your opponent, you might remember, on the stage, Angel Tavares, said, hey, look, let's wait and see and how the civil suit plays out. And you got a lot of grief for that. We still haven't seen any signs of an independent investigation. And I got to tell you, it sure sounds like you are shifting to what Angel Tavares said that night.
Yeah. Well, look, here's the thing. We have an independent investigation, state police investigation. That's happening. I've been monitoring that very closely.
That's a criminal investigation. It doesn't look at the backroom deals, if there were any, that might have happened up on Smith Hill. So those are those tend to be very focused.
It is focused, but it's happening. State police are looking at it. I'm monitoring that closely. I've asked the colonel to be thorough but quick, wrap it up as quickly as he can, being thorough. We have that going on. We have a broad and sweeping civil litigation, and under my administration, the Commerce Corp went to the court and said, please release all those documents to the public. The court said yes, and now there's thousands of pages of depositions and information out in the public. And on top of that, the General Assembly now is going to do oversight hearings with subpoena power. So, where am how am I thinking about it right now?
So does all of that trump an independent investigation at this point? Are you satisfied with those three pillars?
Here's what I think. I think there's two things that I have to have happen here. Number one, figure out, was there any wrongdoing, hold people accountable. Number two, get our money back, get taxpayers' money back. I'm working hard to get the money back with the lawsuit. We've already reclaimed millions of dollars, and I'm optimistic we'll be able to get more. I think the combination of the state police investigation and the oversight hearings is enough to uncover wrongdoing.
That's a flip-flop.
It could be, but look, I'm the governor. I have to do what's right. An independent, when we did the RISDIC investigation, it was $6 million of taxpayer money. I am not, at this point, going to spend any more taxpayer money to do yet another investigation when I have a huge civil litigation that I'm managing, a state police investigation, and oversight hearings with subpoena power. I think the combination of those three things will get to the bottom of it and get our money back. If, at the end of that, I feel there's a need for yet another investigation, I'll do it. I'll launch it. But I don't have that. Based on everything I know right now, I don't think that's a good use of taxpayer money at this point in time.
All right, we're going to take a break on the program. Our guest this week is Governor Gina Raimondo. Stay with us. You're watching Newsmakers. Welcome back to Newsmakers. I'm Tim White. To my right is WPRI.com reporter Ted Nesi. Our guest this week is Governor Gina Raimondo. Ted.
I have to ask, when did you and Speaker Mattiello first discuss having you hire former Rep Don Lally to an administration job? How did it come up?
Oh gosh, I don't remember.
Really?
Yeah, I talk to him every week. It's been interesting for me to follow the Lally thing. I hired Lally in my office to work with us to make it easier and cheaper to do business in Rhode Island. And, he's doing a good job, like everybody else. I'll hold him accountable. If he does his job, he keeps his job. If he doesn't, he loses his job.
But I can't count the number of times you say we need to get away from I know a guy politics.
We do.
People look and they say, oh, Gina Raimondo gets in, the speaker is in favor of his old friend from the State House getting a job, she finds him the job, they get around the Ethics Commission on it, although there's now investigation,
Yeah.
it doesn't look good.
If he does his job, it looks fine. You know, I held him to the same standard as everyone else. Do you have the qualifications? Will you work hard? Will you produce? I've taken a lot of abuse for hiring out-of-state people. You know, I've made 300 plus appointments since I've been governor. Many of them are people from out of state. Many of them are people who have no government experience. Some are, you know, people who have been in government. So I hire the best people I can. I hold them accountable. If they do the job, then I'm happy.
Your administration denied some records on Don Lally, and you knew you were going to get this question from me. Earlier this week, top staffers met with good government groups. As a board member of the New England First Amendment Coalition, I was at that meeting. Your administration is off to a rocky start in terms of transparency, hence that meeting. What are you doing to change it?
Yeah, you know, transparency is very important to me. It was when I was treasurer, and it still is. And I brought my team together and I said, look guys, transparency is a priority. Put policies in place to make that so. We're always trying to do better. It's a balance, right? It's a balance. I have to run the government. I'll tell you, my top priority is getting people back to work, fixing a broken government, fixing our schools. That's what I'm focused on.
Transparency can help all of those things.
100% agree. It is very important. It can help all of those things. That's why I'm the first governor. I put the budget online. We have an online budget tool. I would love for people to engage with that. 38 studios. I went to the court and said, put all the documents out. Thousands of documents, let them public. All of the troubled agencies that I've inherited, Department of Transportation, Buddha, DCYF, I've made no secret of the fact that I've got real challenges. I've invited the press in every time and said, take a look at what we have. So, you know, I'm always trying to do better on transparency. There's no doubt we can do better. It can help, you're right. And I tell my team, you know, constantly try to do better.
The difference with the 38 Studios document release, and I won't go on about this, but my final question, the difference between the 38 Studios document release is that is in the past. The proof in the pudding is the current things that are going on. Will you ask your staff to re-examine the denials that really led to this outcry? A lot of personnel records, the Lally information,
yes.
Timesheets, folks that are on administrative leave. Will you ask your staff to re-examine?
Yes, I already have, actually. I already have. You know, it's really, this is a continuous improvement. I'm trying to run a continuous improvement government. It's not perfect now, but we're going to continue to try to get better. And I already have. I said, come on, guys, sit down. Where can we do better? But, you know, within the practical reality of we have to run the government, and what I'm primarily focused on is outcomes and delivering results.
Okay. Rhode Island's two huge hospital groups, Lifespan and Care New England, have renewed their merger talks yet again. They're always walking down the aisle but never getting married, to do something on my mind. Have you met with them to discuss it, the chiefs of the two hospital groups?
I have, and but I should say I'm constantly meeting with healthcare providers in my constant effort to get costs to come down, and they were both very helpful in my Medicaid work. But yes, I have talked to them both about this.
What do you think? I mean, it got held up in the Couture administration. The administration has a big impact.
Here's what I think. I think that we have, I would love for Rhode Island to have a really top-notch academic medical center that is a real engine of growth in this economy and that provides very high quality of care for the people of Rhode Island. I also worry that if either one of those hospitals were to link up with a Boston-based partner, that I believe that's bad for Rhode Island. And I've been very clear about that. If one of those hospitals were to hook up with a Brigham and Women's or Partners or whatever, more and more health care would move to the north. And I think that's bad for the people of Rhode Island. We want excellent quality hospitals in Rhode Island, and frankly, we want all that money to stay in this economy. So I've been open with both of them about that. If they feel that they should come together because they can run a more efficient, higher quality hospital, they ought to do that. And I really don't want them linking up with a neighbor out of this state, because I think that's bad for our economy and just bad for people's health.
Another company question. Have you met with officials from GE about possibly moving the company's headquarters here?
Well,
that's the rumor mill.
That's the rumor mill. Here's what I will say. I certainly picked up the phone and called them. I read the paper every day, the Wall Street Journal, and if there are CEOs in other states complaining, I call them. So I called GE and said Rhode Island's a great place to do business.
You currently have 2 lists from the Judicial Nominating Commission on your desk for open judgeships. Have you interviewed any of the candidates, and when do you expect to announce your choices?
Yeah, I have not interviewed any of the candidates, and I won't really focus on that until January because the Senate's out until January. So I haven't started it yet. But here's what I will say, and I want to, say this as many times as I can in a public forum. We need more diversity on the bench. And as I look at the list that I have in front of me, there are 15 people on the list for, I think, 3 vacancies, and there's not a single person of color.
So what do you do?
So that's what I'm trying to figure out. So what I need to do is meet. There's a thing called the Judicial Nominating Committee, which is the group that gives the governor the list. I am going to ask them to step up their efforts, and I need to step up my own efforts to reach out to the legal community and encourage folks of diversity to apply.
One of the names on the
pipeline needs to get better.
Okay, one of the names on the list is former state rep Timothy Williamson, and the state house is buzzing that he might get a judgeship there. Critics might say that would send a message as business as usual on Smith Hill. Do you agree with that, or would he be an appropriate choice?
I haven't read any of these resumes, so...
Does it give you pause when considering a state rep?
It gives me pause considering anyone. I mean, yes, I'm aware of the perception issues, so certainly I will take that into account. But I want to pick the highest quality people I can find. So that's not in and of itself disqualifying, but if I go through the resume and think, for whatever set of reasons, this person won't be a good judge, I'm not going to pick them.
City of Providence recently disclosed its deficit for last year was $5 million, not the $27,000 they had told your administration they expected. There's also this high-stakes fight with the firefighters about overtime. How concerned are you about the capital city's financial health at this point?
Yeah. Well, I am concerned. I'm concerned about all the municipalities. It's not just Providence, Pawtucket, Woonsocket, West Warwick, Coventry. So I'm concerned. I talk to the mayor probably on a weekly basis, and my message to him is the message to every mayor, which is number 1, how can I help you? How can we be supportive? But number 2, you have to face reality on some of these big, tough issues. How are your pensions in line? Is your health care in line? Are there places to cut costs? And in Providence in particular, Providence represents half of Rhode Island's GDP.
That's the gross state product, the economy.
Yeah, exactly, half the economy. So Rhode Island needs a strong Providence. So as Providence goes, Rhode Island goes. So I am concerned, and I'm encouraging the mayor, and he's working hard. I'm working with him on economic development, working with him on the 195 land, working with him on a few business deals. We got to get growth. We need growth. The secret there is no secret. The recipe is economic growth, higher wage jobs. That's especially true in Providence in these urban areas. But also, don't shy away from the tough issues. Look at those pensions. Look at your overhead cost.
Have you considered sending a state official in to either review or even oversee Providence's finances?
No, I have not. I mean, if the mayor reached out and said, we need more help, we would, of course, love to do that. But, he's the mayor. There's the city council. There's the mayor. They're doing a good job. They're working hard. We're here to help if they need us. And definitely on the business development, we are working overtime to assist their efforts to get businesses.
We have a couple minutes left. We taped this program on a Friday, and before you walked into the studio, your predecessor decided he's not going to run for president anymore. Former Governor Lincoln Chafee announced he's dropping out. What was your reaction? What is your reaction?
Yeah, obviously that's his decision. I would say this is a guy that has dedicated his whole life to public service. His dad was an amazing public servant. The Chafees have been great public servants. So I think we should take a minute and celebrate that. Public service is hard. He gave 30 years to public service, and he's made a decision. It's the end of the road for him. So good luck.
You've been in office 10 months now. Is there any action or decision you've taken you'd like a do-over on?
probably many.
Give us our top one. Give the top one then.
Tough. I think you've stumped me, Ted. I mean, there's so many.
Dear Diary.
things.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we like to hear.
Dear Diary.
Well, let me ask you this way. Do you feel after going through the budget process, and as Ted points out, it's almost been a year since your election, and we have 1 minute left, do you think there needs to be a better balance of power between the executive and legislative branches?
That's a good question. I would say this. The governor's job is to set forth a vision, set forth priorities, and develop the public will for those initiatives. And, I didn't get everything I wanted, but I think we did a pretty good job. We balanced the budget with no tax increases, put through huge business development activities, started a school building authority, started an infrastructure fund, completely revamped Medicaid. When I started to talk about Medicaid, you might remember that the House Speaker was pretty cool to it. So the short answer is no. I think that the governor has enough tools in the toolbox to get things done.
Governor Gina Raimondo, our guest this week on Newsmakers. For Ted Nesi, I'm Tim White. We'll see you next week on Newsmakers.